Thank you very much, PDFS. I think you have an A in your thesis to introduce the financial sector. Thank you very much. We will not be defending anyone's budget this morning, so I still want to appeal those that are sitting at the rows after the door. Please come, there are spaces here, because most of the action will be taking place at this end. So just feel free to migrate, please. I will not ask you to defend your budget this morning. I will not be asked. But for us just to have everyone's attention as the program goes ahead. So thank you very much. Honorable Vice President, Honorable Minister of Finance and Deputy Minister of Finance, Honorable Minister of Planning and Economic Government, Chairman of the Parliamentary Finance Committee, and our able representative from Civil Society Organization of BAN, Mr. Obaka, Ministers of Government, Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament, our development partners present here this morning as well, all stakeholders in the budget process. Let me welcome you on behalf of the Ministry of Finance to this year's policy hearings. Of course, we all know the policy hearings is the curtain raiser for us to start discussions around the budget process for the subsequent year. So we are talking of 2025 budgets. So based on provisions in our PFM Act and the Constitution of Sierra Leone, we are starting the consultative process in putting that budget together by all coming here today to discuss what will be the underlying policies that will drive the budget presentation to Parliament later this year by the Minister of Finance. Last year, by now, we hadn't launched the NDP, but we have hindsight of what were the issues that will be in the NDP based on the manifesto that was presented by the government, especially on the Big Five. I think it was after the policy hearings, after presentation of the budget in Parliament, then the NDP was launched. But this year we have what part B of the NDP now that it has been launched. We now know the issues that are in the National Development Plan. And interestingly, like we say now, it is for almost 6 years, from 2024 to 2030 of implementation. So 2025 effectively will be the first full year implementation of the programs, projects, and activities that are in the National Development Plan, which has been approved and presented to the people of this country. So the policies we are going to discuss, the budget hearings we're going to have for next week, they will focus on the clusters in the National Development Plan and how sector ministries are going to align their programs, their budgets to the objectives of the NDP. So I'll make sure every year we can monitor and measure the progress we are making in implementation of the NDP, because that's what's driving the budget, the resource allocation. That's why this year, given the themes of the budget discussion, we've been able to classify them over several days of the discussions. So for the first 2 days, we say let's just discuss about fees alone, and then we discuss about human capital development, we discuss about infrastructure and technology, we discuss about public administration and governance, and we discuss about youth empowerment programs. So that at the end of the budget discussions themselves, stakeholders will go well informed about what MDAs are doing to address the issues that are in the NDP, and not just to present to the public what they want to implement as a ministry or sector, or how they intend to fulfill the objectives in the NDP. So that's how the discussions have been shaped from next week onwards. So today, we'll start by discussing the broad policies that will drive the budget. So policy makers here that have been well selected to make statements from the Ministry of Finance, Planning, and up to the level of the Honorable Vice President himself will help to shape those policies which will guide us as we formulate the budget. The budget, as we know, is not prepared in a vacuum. Of course, it has to be done within a framework, within what we believe the country can generate in terms of resources and how we believe that can be spent. So therefore, as part of the process of developing the budget, we are already in discussions with development partners also to see how they will come in to support the budget for 2025. So we'll discuss projections on revenue, we'll discuss our projections on expenditure, we'll discuss our projections on the broad macroeconomic variables from growth, how we see our country to grow, or our economy next year, inflation, exchange rates, and the rest. And then they will give us their own inputs to help shape the framework, which eventually will put in the context of the budget, and the minister will table it to Parliament later this year. So this is why we are all here, to take part in that process. Over the past 1 year, we've definitely recorded significant economic gains from where we are about 12 or 13 months ago. We've seen stable increase in GDP. GDP growth has moved from 3.2% last year. We're projected to grow by 4.2% next year. Inflation, we've seen from the mid-double digits of 54-55% October last year. Now it's now in the lower 30%. And we expect that during the course of 2025 budgets, we'll definitely target inflation to come to a single digit. We can do it, and I believe with the support, we'll get there. The exchange rate also has been stable from October to date, and we intend to keep it at that. Why? Because we've instituted policies collaboratively with the Bank of Sierra Leone and other economic agents to make sure we regulate and respond to the issues that affect the supply and demand of forex in our economy, and how we put policies in place to address that. And even work with the banking system to make sure these policies, some will have been enacted through laws, are well implemented so that we don't have a reverse of the situation, but rather we would like to see a situation where our exchange rate will improve, even coming to 1 or 10 million to $1. I believe we'll all be happy for that. And that will bring even more value to our emoluments, because we know emoluments have really depreciated as a result of the exchange rate depreciation over the past years. So there has been loss in real consumption of citizens in terms of the income. So therefore, these things are really at the top of our minds when we do the budget, to make sure we handle the macroeconomic variables very, very strongly, so that at least people feel the impact. When people say they don't feel the impact of the budget, the impact of the economy, it's because the indicators are not going towards the right direction. When these indicators speak towards the right direction, then every Sierra Leone and every citizen, of course, will feel the impact in their pockets. Budget execution has been challenging, of course, over the past 1 year, because we are trying to consolidate, looking at where we came from in terms of exposure, fiscal exposures, and wide budget deficits. We are only budget deficits of double digits of over 11% of GDP, which was really out of balance. Now we brought that down to about 5% of GDP, our budget deficit. So which is why you see all the economic indicators really driving towards the right direction. In the midst of that, we've been able to pay public sector wages and emoluments every month, up to now as we speak, without accumulating arrears to our teachers, lawyers, security forces, doctors, health sector workers, civil servants. We've been paying salaries and emoluments, members of parliament, ministers, political appointees. We can all access to that, including benefits for rent and others. Oh yes, we've been able to do that. Debt service payments has been a burden, because debts are maturing almost on a weekly basis, and we have to make sure we are credible. We don't want partners to say Sierra Leone has defaulted. We are following the international news of other countries that have defaulted in their public debts, and they have been taken out of the economic programs for British institutions. But we have been able to keep our head above waters, and we're honoring our debt service obligations, and we intend to continue to do so. At the same time, we've been implementing capital projects, still on roads, energy, water supply, we've been paid quite significant amount of resources to these sectors, and we see those projects are moving on. Local councils, they are here, they can attest. It's now 8 months in the year, but we've been able to do 2 transfers to local councils in the midst of all these challenges. We can attest to that. And we intend to do more even before the end of this year. We've been able to meet critical security-related expenditures at the same time for the first 8 months of this year. And we've heard about the energy challenge we faced in the first half of the year. Of course, part of the discussion we'll be having in the afternoon will target, we focus on the energy sector, what are the risks there, and what the ministry is doing in collaboration with other agencies of government to really handle this energy crisis and resolve it once and for all. I'll tell you, from last year to now, we've paid a little over $40 million as direct energy subsidies alone to our IPP providers. So these and others are the challenge that we're having in mobilizing resources, but at the same time, these are the areas that we're driving the bulk of the resources in the budget, which is why yesterday we were in discussions with the ACC preparing their new anti-corruption strategy, and they drew members from the public, independent people to look at the strategy. And whilst we are consulting, I think they met some of you MDAs, and the main complaint was they are not getting your allocations on time. Ministry of Finance is not releasing allocations on time. So they were asking us, what is our response to that? So that when they capture it in the strategy, they will bring up recommendations on how those challenges will be addressed. But when we took our time, the minister, the deputy, myself, colleagues, to take them through all of these challenges that we're facing and how we're addressing them, uncertainties, security environment, political environment, energy, and all of these things, that will be how we're battling to handle it and make sure there is some form of stability, peace and tranquility in the country, and we see things are moving on quite, in a more improved way compared to the past. I think they were able to appreciate that a trade-off has to be made. If we are to meet all of these expenditures, all of these critical programs of government to make sure that the country operates smoothly, then definitely from the same resources, we cannot at the same time be able to release allocations to MDAs on a timely basis as we have done to. But regardless of that, we believe most MDAs have been able to receive resources from the budget, though perhaps not up to 40-50% so far this year. But we intend, and I'm sure the minister will speak to that in the statement, what we'll do to address that before end of this year. Even the hospitals, again, will be able to make transfers to them this year so far. So these are some of the things that have been driving budget execution so far this year. And in the context of that, January to now, we've done all of that from our domestic resources. I think we need to give a round of applause to NRA, to the National Revenue Authority, and the way we've been intervening, even from our banks, the support from the central bank in our primary markets to support budget implementation. There has been no budget support disbursement from January to August, but yet still we've been able to implement all of these programs to date with no areas built up, especially on critical public sector, which is emolument or debt service default. So which means the NRA, for the first half of the year, we exceeded revenue targets by 380 billion. That's 380 billion euros by the National Revenue Authority from January to June alone. Why? Because of policies, measures, reforms we've put in place, supported automation of most of the tax handles. We know there are still leakages, and we are working every day to see how we tackle those leakages and how we make sure that we get all the revenues. When we start with the Vice President a day or two ago, he was drawing our attention to some of these areas that we need to focus on to address leakages. Even to some of us, they were like news to our ears. That tells you there are still a lot for us to do in addressing revenue leakage. So just imagine if we can exceed revenue target by over 380 billion, and it down all those leakages, perhaps we'll have even double and meet the targets for the first half. Resource mobilization for the first, from last year to now, we've done very well as well in terms of how we've been engaging with our partners. As we speak, we have just done the first engagement of the International Monetary Fund to discuss our first half performance with them, and the discussions, I'm happy to report, went well. So in September, we've been having official negotiations with the IMF here in Freetown for us to start a successful economic extended credit facility program with the IMF in September, which hopefully the board of the IMF will approve in October or November this year. And the approval of that program will also qualify for a new program with the IMF, two programs, which they call the one that addresses climate challenges, the Resilience Sustainability Trust Facility Program, which Sierra will also automatically qualify for. And that's combined two programs will be getting over 480 million disbursement from the fund over the next 3 years, once we succeed in signing those two programs with the IMF by November and February next year. The World Bank also are in discussions with our budget support program for this year. I want to encourage all ministries, departments, and agencies that are implementing the development policy actions, the DPO triggers for this year. We have just a little over 2 months for us to meet those triggers so that the World Bank also can go to their board and approve our budget support program of 65 million for this year. Also, of course, you followed in the news in April last year we were in Washington, D.C. to negotiate the MCC program, which so far has gone very well, and we see the MCC board has approved the program for Sierra Leone to address our energy sector of our $480 million. We hope that that program will also be signed soon by His Excellency the President, so that the effective implementation will start. Already, we're in engagement with sector ministries and other key players on how we can begin to implement the conditions precedent for the disbursement under the MCC. So work is already underway. The European Union will also in discussions with them to resume budget support operations this year. And by the end of this year, also expect the European Union to disburse about 12 million euros to the budget. So these are all the platform that we've laid. So which means going forward for the medium term, we've really moved on in terms of resource mobilization. We've set the framework for revenue mobilization. So it's about how we put all of this in the context of our budget in addressing the national development plan objectives. So that is what we'll be looking at over the next couple of days or weeks in putting the budget together. So this afternoon we'll start the discussions. We will not take all the 5 areas because of time, but the budget hearings will cover them, of course. So this afternoon we'll be looking at feed salon again, renewable energy, human capital development in the context of health for all, how we look at our health services there in the country, and education, quality education. And of course, then we want to look at technology, because there's a lot of discussions now about how technology can aid economic development. So we'll be listening to a discussion or presentation on the PRSP, the NDP cluster on technology, specifically to see how we can support that through the budget and how technology can be used to implement economic programs and support code. So that is what we'll be engaging for this morning to the afternoon, and then we'll adjourn, and then Monday we'll start the hearings bilaterally with the ministries and the Ministry of Finance effectively. So let me once again welcome you all to the budget hearings, and we hope you will take part. Feel free to contribute in the discussions when they are open. We are here to listen to you. It's not only for us to tell you what we want to do, but to listen to you. You can guide us better on how we can shape these policies and how we can put them in the context of the budget, so that once it is presented to Parliament, we can all own it as our budget and implement it together, so that we can have the results we are looking for as a country. So thank you very much, and I'll stop here so that I don't take on what my policy is to be. So we need to invite them now to the podium to make statements. So without wasting much time, we'll start with our civil society representative from the Budget Advocacy Network. They have been very instrumental in supporting us in shaping government policies. They could be critique at times, but for me, I always love when they come from the critique angle, because that's where we land. So let me invite Abubakar Kamara from BAN to make a statement. Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause.
His Excellency, the Vice President, Ministers, colleagues, civil societies, diplomats, journalists, good morning again. Firstly, let me thank Government by Extension Minister of Finance for not only provide the space for citizens to participate in sessions like this, but for also include us in critical technical committees on revenues and expenditures. This shows that they value our commitment and will uphold that commitment and continue to provide valuable input to support government interventions. I also want to thank the Minister of Finance for improving its scores on the open budget survey from 45 to 55. It's a progress, even though the minimum requirement is 60%. Civil society, as you all know, we play a critical role in public financial management around transparency, accountability, and participation. Of course, one of the things we are known for is advocacy. And civil society in Sierra Leone has grown. We have formed ourselves to thematic areas based on expertise. For example, we have BAN, who is the lead on both financial management. We have those in mining, we have those in other sectors. So we did that work. So around the PFM, we will always be lobbying for fiscal policies that will really push the country before. We've lobbied for laws and regulations that promote transparency and accountability. For example, when we heard that the government will be reviewing the Public Debt Management Act, we came together and looked at the whole act from the transparency and accountability angle. We developed clauses. You know, one of the things we are doing now, we are not only criticizing or lamenting, we are also providing alternatives. I can say that we have presented to the Minister of Finance clauses, proposed clauses that care to us improve debt transparency and accountability for their constitution. And we have also developed a position paper. I have copies that I'll share. So this just also provides the role we play in terms of improving public financial management. Of course, we monitor budgets and expenditure to ensure that they be utilized for the right purpose. You know, when I received the letter, I contacted a number of CSOs, and a CSO from Bo called me and said, I want you to look at local councils. You see, because I visited local council, and there are a lot of complaints about late transfer. The FS have just mentioned that. And it's a critical challenge. And I looked at the Accountant General report for June, which covers from January to June, for the operating expense for local councils, not much transferred as of June, based on Minister of Finance, but it's a concern civil society at the district level are raising, which, of course, the FS has mentioned some of the challenges they are facing to meet those timely disbursements. On audits, of course, our goal here is to ensure that public resources are utilized effectively. So we see a renewed vigor at the PAC, and I want to say thanks to the Honorable Tawa and the committee for really doing the people's work the way it's supposed to be. Because the level of scrutiny the PAC is now providing is really commendable. And they are also set up a structure to follow up on the recommendations. But with civil society are included, we will support that process. And we support government to ensure that public resources are really utilized and they are accountable for. Mr. Vice President, as Chair for the Interministerial for Local Councils, we are pleased to say that the gender budgeting at the local level is on the increase. However, Minister, at the MDA level, we are yet to realize a real practicable gender budgeting, and it's something we continue to work with government to see how that can be improved. Because when we have gender budgeting, the impact will be massive. It is geared towards leaving no one behind. You know, I read the budget cost cycle, and there are new initiatives which society want to commend government on around green budgeting and child budgeting. And so we are calling for the MDAs when implementing this initiative to be more transparent and accountable, so that we support that drive. It's a very good initiative. On inclusion, you know, I'm happy that we are included in this process, but we did a report quite recently around the impact of downward GST 2 years back and the barriers. And there are a lot of issues with SMEs raised. And since it's a policy hearing, one of them has to do with, and I've started having conversation with some members of the Ministry of Finance, and they are also working that right. How do we ensure that we have a tax system that will cater for the SME that will create more burden on them. And there are issues also around including SMEs in policy discussion. Mind you, most of the policies, some of the policies, formulations, and laws has impact on small and medium enterprises. And there are competent women that have the capacity to discuss this issue with government. So they are calling for inclusion of SMEs to be part of the budget discussion. We know them and they are very competent. On the revenue aspect, again, I also looked at the figures produced to NRA. They have exceeded target based on January to June. But we are CSO, we are not only looking at transparency and accountability aspect. We also support the revenue mobilization by both at local and national level. Let me give an example. Two the base projects supported by USAID, we have supported Ward C to bring in over 26,000 new properties into the Bilateral system. And by our calculation, if only there is compliance of 30%, it will generate over 40 billion annually. And of course, the Minister of Development and the Minister of Finance will feel the relief which that will bring to our country. Mr. Minister, by the after 3 of the budget speech last year, we introduced 65% import duties on rice. And we as CSOs wholly support the revenue mobilization drive geared towards supporting the feed salon. However, in this same hall, we are promised that based on the strategic plan for Ministry of Agriculture, that rice with rice importation will be reduced 25% yearly. And we saw when that 5% was increased. We know that the import duty is not the only factor affecting the increase in price. There are a whole lot of factors. But we also saw what happened, what the business people did in terms of bringing some amount of increase in the price. And from that statement, another 5% will be included this year to make it 10%. What we as CSO is calling for now is, and what we are calling is, to wait when we have reached the stage to increase production, then we'll add up another 5%, make it 10%. Because what's going to happen is, once they had a 5%, rice, the price of rice is going to increase. And of course, those that are going to suffer most are the poor and the vulnerable. And we saw it in statistics around hunger around the country. So that's our call for the society on the proposed to increase another 5%, make it 10% on import duties. Lastly, whilst we acknowledge the fact that the policy having and budget discussion is a very critical space to make input contribution on how the country is running. However, the issues around feedback from the Minister of Finance is a concern that we have raised over the years. For example, last year the budget discussion finished on the 20th of October. On the 23rd, civil society presented a comprehensive report that is geared towards improving the process itself, improving revenue generation, and improving expenditure management based on what was discussed. So what we are calling for, and again, it's part of the open budget recommendation, is how do we have that feedback mechanism so that when people come and participate, they will now realize that their input are taken or not actually taken. I want to conclude that CSOs will contribute to more transparent, accountable, and effective public financial management that will ultimately contribute to better governance and improved services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abubakar. I think these are very good insights you've given us in the process and how you've been contributing towards the budget hearings and discussions. We've taken note of all the issues you've raised, and I'll show you, especially on the feedback, we'll call you to discuss on how we put mechanism in place to address that. But let's make progress now. I want to invite the chairman of the Parliamentary Finance Committee, Honorable Kaisamba, to make a statement on the role of Parliament in the budget process. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Vice President, Ministers and Deputy Ministers present, Heads of Department, permanent secretaries, members of Parliament present, donor partners, the fourth estate, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. May I start by thanking the Honourable Minister of Finance for inviting me to make a statement on the role of Parliament in the budget process. Budget in democratic governance refers to the statement on government fiscal and economic policy measures relating to its annual revenue and expenditure decisions. The budget is the most potent instrument of the government carrying out its policy objectives. The budget cycle has various stages ranging from macro fiscal forecast, budget preparations, approval, execution, and of course, evaluation. Parliament is mainly involved in the approval process and oversight on the budget. In line with Section 105 of the 1991 Constitution of Sierra Leone, Parliament shall be the supreme legislative authority of Sierra Leone. Section 1061 provides that the power to make laws shall be exercised by bills passed by Parliament and signed by the President. One such bill is appropriation bill, and its documentations that are brought to Parliament for scrutiny, approval, and passage into law. Parliament's roles in the budget process are approval and oversight. These are very critical in ensuring that government spending align with national priorities and collective will of the people. The FY 2025 budget and its subsequent ones will address the 5 big game changers commitment of HE President Julius Maada Bio. The role of Parliament in this budget process are as follows. Review and approval of the budget. This involves 4 stages. Stage 1, budget presentation. Section 112 of the 1991 Constitution, subsection 33 and section 33 of the PFM Act of 2016 provide that the Minister of Finance shall present the budget to Parliament not later than 2 months to the start of the financial year to which it relates. Budget debate. The budget shall be debated for 5 allotted days in line with section 112, subsection 6 of the 1991 Constitution and Standing Order 63 to 69 of the Rules and Procedures of Parliament. 3. There shall be a committee of supply. The operation bill and its documents will further be scrutinized by parliamentary sub-appropriation committees. This is an engagement with MDAs to defend their revenues and expenditures. At this stage, the report of engagement from the further scrutiny process will be presented to the plenary for approval of the vote heads and sub-heads of MDAs and the passage of the bill into law. Monitoring and accountability on the budget. Parliament monitors implementation of the budget to ensure that funds are issued as budgeted. Parliamentary committees like the PAC sit on the general report to examine the annual account of MDAs to ensure transparency and accountability in the use of public funds. In conclusion, therefore, Mr. Chairman, respectable audience, Parliament expects maximum cooperation from all stakeholders in the budget process to ensure budget credibility, accountability, and transparency in the use of public funds and to achieve national development. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kaisamba, for that presentation and giving us the assurance that Parliament will play its role in approving the budget and taking it through all the stages that you just mentioned. We're making progress. So now I will invite the Minister of Planning and Economic Development to do a statement on the implementation and monitoring strategy of the medium-term National Development Plan 2024 to 2030. So let's give her a round of applause. Mrs. Kenya Bale.
Your Excellency, the Vice President, members of Parliament, colleague ministers, members of the Diplomatic Corps, development partners, members of the Fourth Estate, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you, and I would also like to join the FS in welcoming you to this session of the budget policy hearing for the financial year 2025, National Budget and Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, which will acquaint you with the policy direction the government wishes to take in the evaluation of the budget for the financial year 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, the financial year 2025 budget is coming at the backdrop of the launch of the Medium-Term National Development Plan 2024 to 2030 by His Excellency the President, Dr. Julius Manuel. We were all present at this launch on the 30th of January 2024. And as we are all aware, the theme of this plan is a transformative acceleration agenda for food security, human capital development, and job creation, which was deliberately chosen. Let me, at this juncture, thank all, including development partners and stakeholders from the wider public, who contributed in diverse ways to deliver the new plan, which was innovatively produced in record time despite constrained financial resources. I wish also to thank the Presidency, through the Vice President, for the strategic direction and confidence reposed in us throughout the process. As the Financial Secretary pointed out, the significance of the financial year 2025 national budget as the budget that transforms from the first full year of the implementation of the new plan. Today, I have been asked to speak on the plan's implementation and monitoring strategy. We are all aware, unlike the previous plans, which were developed for a 5-year period, that this new plan is developed for a 7-year period, running from 2024, in sync with the end of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the plan is also aligned to other international frameworks. This was deliberate, as it illustrates the government's elevated ambition to keep track on the issues and focus on building a capable and effective national economy as a prerequisite for the social, economic, environmental, and democratic stability. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, I would like to remind you that the plan is projected to cost $12.5 billion, of which $6.62 billion represents direct project-related expenditures, and $5.43 billion represents the government's statutory expenditures to support project implementation. The government projects to raise $9.49 billion from both internal and already committed external resources, leaving a total financing gap of $2.56 billion. As part of the plan's implementation strategy, government will work with our development partners to implement a robust, integrated national financing framework, to mobilize the needed resources, including innovative climate change and blended financing. And internally, we will continue to review the cost of the plan in our annual and midterm evaluations of its implementation. For the development budget effective for the financial year 2025, as I informed the ministers last week, we will review, reprogram, and rationalize the stock of public investment programs for each ministry, department, and agency. In this process, only projects with smart, deliverable outcomes that are in sync with the medium-term national development plan, especially the big 5 game changers, and with adequate funding provisions, will be prioritized for inclusion into the budget. And this will include the following: the reprogramming of all recurrence-related projects and programs into the recurrent budget. This includes training, capacity building programs, school feeding, school fees subsidies, and support programs, etc. These will be discussed bilaterally with the respective MDAs. Also, we will review the existing PIP portfolio for every MDA, so that priority will be given to the projects which are near completion and are still relevant within the new plan. New projects will only be addressed into the national development budget if they align to the medium-term national development plan, of course, especially the big 5 game changers, meet the MDA's strategic plan, and funds are available for that project. It's not all doom and gloom. It's like everybody's not serious, but it's to rationalize the plan. We have some good news. To implement the national plan in the district level, at the level of local councils, we have developed and validated a standardized framework for developing district development plans, referred to as DDPs, that are aligned to the national budget. And we are currently engaging the local councils in rolling out this framework. The programs at the local council level in the financial year 2024 national budget, we established PIPs for the local councils, thus integrating local PIPs into the national budget. Ladies and gentlemen, well, this is also good news. I would like to point out that we, Sierra Leone, are the forerunners in the sub-region to consolidate local public investment programs into the general government budget. The Public Investment Management Directorate in my ministry and the Fiscal Decentralization Department in the Ministry of Finance recently concluded a 2-week bilateral engagement with all councils where over 200 projects with an estimated cost of 450 million newlands have been profiled and are currently under review and analysis for incorporation into our national budget. Going further, we will deepen this process by considering climate resilient actions and gender mainstreaming in the public investment program. At least I'll get a clap from the Minister of Gender. We also hope to integrate projects supported by NGOs, and Honorable Your Excellency Vice President, you whispered this question to me, supported by INGOs and NGOs. To facilitate this, my ministry is leading the process to lead the capacity of local councils, which will commence next week. In order to ensure that all of this work is effective and avoids implementation challenges, we will adopt the following implementation measures. First, and I did mention this last week, Whilst the Ministry of Finance maintains the fiduciary part of the implementation of the Public Investment Programme, the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development is going to serve as the gatekeeper and clearinghouse for all domestically funded projects. This will ease accountability and reporting on the implementation of the medium-term development plan, and is also extremely critical for the annual and medium-term reviews of the progress of the medium development plan implementation. We will collaborate with the Ministry of Finance and other stakeholders to ensure that the various technical committees in the National Public Investment Policy are triggered into action. For the local councils, we will deepen the District Development Coordinating Committees, the DDC platform, and continue to provide support and oversight on the development and implementation of the district development plans. I'm nearing the end. To facilitate the conduct of feasibility studies and develop bankable projects across government, for which we are presently piloting 3 projects of which we are about to disperse funds next week to update investment programs and feasibility studies. These 3 are the commercial fish farming project, Tech City in Bo, and also the update of the feasibility study and the investment plan for the Singini Hydro in the Moyamba district. We will commence disbursement, I believe, next week after we sign MOUs with the respective ministries. I'm supposed to talk about implementation and monitoring. I've spoken about implementation. Very briefly on monitoring. On the monitoring and evaluation of the plan, our ministry is currently working with NAMIA to produce the results framework of the medium-term national development plan, which should be the guiding tool to monitor the progress for the implementation of the development interventions and targets defined in the plan, and identify bottlenecks for resolution. It will also guide oversight, coordination, and implementation of the plan, as well as ensuring that information, data and analysis are of the best quality. And the results framework has been broken down annually. In the plan, you will see annual targets, and this wasn't the case in the past. And what we are doing, and by the end of this year, maybe I should tell the ministers now, is that you will be, we'll get a scorecard, let me not say evaluated, on the targets for this year. For instance, the Gender Act, that's one of the key policy actions, and the Child Rights Act, and the minister has moved on this. But for feed salon, very particularly, we're looking at the targets for production, coverage, the acreage, the increase in the acreage, and also the reduction in the import cost for staple foods, especially rice. These are all targets, and we will be looking at these keenly by the end of the year. So you go back to the plan and look at those targets, and when you get the results framework, look at your targets for this year. And we only have a few more months, a few more months, when you still have about 5 months to at least accelerate if you haven't moved on some of these targets. We will continue to work with NAMIA in monitoring these targets. And we look forward to continue to working with you all as we all deliver the government's Big 5 game-changing agenda for our people and our country. I thank you.
I think she needs another round of applause because she has really given us detailed summary insights into the NDP and key areas we should be looking out for in terms of the implementation and in terms of the monitoring. We are not putting anyone on the spot, But at least that's why we are here to discuss these issues so that once we implement the budget and programs, you know that by next year when you come, we'll be asking you whether those benchmarks or targets were achieved, and if not, why. So that's good. So thank you very much, Madam Minister. I think you've really given us insight into the NDP, even for stakeholders that have not had the time to go through it in detail. So annual costs, if you put it of the NDP, is about $1.78 billion. So it means if our budget right now is still hovering around 1 billion, so there's a lot that we still need to do to even catch up. And as she mentioned, there is a financing gap of about 2.56 billion. So we still need to mobilize more resources. So thank you very much, Madam Minister. Now I want to listen to the key macroeconomic policies now that we underpin the budget for 2025. And so no other person best placed to put that into perspective and take us to Economics 101 so that we understand how projections are done, how deficits are financed, and how to bring down inflation and stabilize the exchange rates. No other person than the Honorable Minister of Finance, Mr. Sheikh Fatah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, FS. Honorable Vice President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, may I ask to stand on the existing protocol, please? Ladies and gentlemen, honorable ministers, colleagues, it's a great pleasure to join, and I'm very pleased. We have a very full hall. So this is one of those important events for the government. This year's policy hearings is the second under His Excellency's second term. And it reaffirms the priority of policies and strategies that have been articulated in the medium-term National Development Plan, which my colleague, the Minister of Development and Economic Planning, had actually eloquently articulated and giving an insight into how we wish to see that plan implemented. And of course, we're all aware that the key focus, the government intends to embark on a transformative acceleration agenda for delivering on food security, human capital development, and job creation. And since His Excellency came to office in 2018, the government has implemented all policy interventions to transform our human capital development status through the flagship on free quality education program, which was the focus of the previous National Development Plan. But also, I think we have embarked on many measures to weather storms that are emanated both internally but also externally as well, in multiple forms. Be they what happened with COVID, which I think we did very well to quell down, given the kind of results and the impact on the economy, but also I think the impact of the Ukraine-Russian crisis, which we never envisaged. But what we have come to realize as economic planners or even managers, we're in a permanent shock environment because of the kind of developments that we are seeing emanating across the world. And they do affect our economy in trivial ways. But I must say that we had remained resilient as an economy all throughout this period. And I will just embark on prefacing what the resilience means by giving you some overview of the current macro situation in the macroeconomic situation. Honorable Vice Presidents and colleague ministers and ladies and gentlemen, the rebased GDP, we did a rebasing of the GDP, and I think it's important that we understand what that means. It points to a shift since 2018, and it's based on 2018 baseline. Since 2018, what we have It's a larger economy, but the structure of this economy has shifted. And I think it's important to share that as a way of sharpening the minds of policymakers. And the way we should think about shifting policy to capitalize on what this means. In fact, when you are running an economy, most of our economies were deemed as those that desire structural transformation. What we have had is structural shift. I don't think we have had transformation yet, and I'll speak to this. But the shift is a prelude for us to sharpen the way we think about planning and interventions in the economy. What is clear from the shift is that when the size of the economy doubled in nominal terms, I think that's important. We are cruising at a $4 billion economy. We are at $8 billion economy now. I think that is very important to appreciate. And this happened, has been happening over the years, but since 2018 to now, it's what we have been able to establish. And the Statistics Alliance has published that report, and I encourage everyone to go to their site to read the fundamentals around it. We are supported by international partners to do this analysis. And what has shifted? We have shifted from the dominance of the agricultural sector to a strategic dominance of the service sector, but also a phenomenal importance of industry. That is what it is. These are the three categories. But the rationale is we are now capturing informalities. So there's more informalities in the economy that we have brought into our calculations. And then also, we are capturing new activities in the industry, especially mining, that is happening. And what it shows in terms of growth numbers, and I think I should share this, we have agriculture was 64% of this economy, based on the new rebased GDP. It is now only 29.1%. Still significant, but I think it's important to understand what that shift means. Industry was 7.8% of the economy. We now have a 26% of industry in this economy. So I think that's really a very phenomenal shift. Service sector was 24.7%. It's now accounting for 42.2%. And in the service sector, I think I should share some notes here. If you see the transport sector with motorbikes, with kekes, with hotels, with those have been captured in a phenomenal way. They may not be transformational. But they have shown that there is a growth that we are seeing in the economy on economic activities. We are accounting for everybody contributing to the state industry. In the industry, it's largely mining. And I say it's not transformational because we're not adding value here. Okay, we are exporting, and it's an enclave sector, but we are capturing the extent of the growing number of mining activities in the country. But also, the shift from agriculture has actually moved into, we're seeing manufacturing along the agricultural value chain. It's important to note that there are industries springing up, and they are springing up in ways that we are capturing them. Now, I'll list some few, whether it has to be with areas utilizing oil palm to produce butter, margarine, those things, or oil, and the like in country is visible. You see our songs, and these entities are just signaling, and we are capturing their activities. So, I think it is important to appreciate that, and for the growth numbers, I will encourage us to quickly transition into using the growth statistics underpinning this done by Statistics Area and own it. Right? So the earlier numbers that were pronounced by the FS, and I'm not discounting that because there are two numbers that we're using. There's the IMF number, but there's the number from Statistics Area. When you propagate that, there are good values coming out of that. So it means we have been resilient, even during the COVID period, and immediately after that, when we did the rebasing, it told us that the earlier numbers we are recording as growth, our growth levels were higher. The reason why we have not actually classically witnessed, shortages of essential commodities in this economy, because we've been providing them through policies. Growth is being above the way we are recording them. And I dare to say that for 2023, in fact, we grew at 5.7% than the 3.4% that was earlier recorded, because we are using two baselines for base years for assessing the economy. So we have a more resilient economy than we used to have before. And I think that is important to drive home, because it will underpin what we're going to be talking about. There are other fundamentals of the economy that are important to throw light on, and I think FS shed light on this, and we have to capitalize on them, because there is a work underway to ensure that we have a proper grip on stabilization of this economy. Inflation is a very key indicator. Inflation had peaked at 54% in October 2023. We have seen over 20-something percent, if I do the math very easily, over 22-23% reduction in inflation. And it's continuing to go down. I think that's a phenomenal number. Yes, it's showing real efforts through policies, both fiscal but also monetary policy, that have been supporting this, but also I think structural measures, because inflation is measured from those two perspectives. They are macro aligned indicators, but also I think they are structural indicators that are dealing with the basket of commodities. And when you see those baskets of commodities, the way their prices are measured, we are a small open economy. We small open in the sense that we are importing largely than actually largely driven domestic production. So external prices will affect us. But because we have had stability around, prudence around fiscal policy, and then stability around exchange rate, but also increased domestic production of key food items, that in that basket, we've been seeing this reinforcing decline in price level. And it's showing in the markets, except when you have instances of social instability tendencies, then they will spike off prices, but not in a sustained way. So when they say they are striking, when there's those risks, and then people leave the market, then prices tend to spike a little bit, but the fundamentals remain very solid and they will go back to normal. So, and we are watching this on a continuous basis. Our currency has been stable because we've gone past the process of the redenomination, and there are assurances and confidence built into the economy, and that has assured a stable currency over the last 1 year, right? And I think the currency has settled, because after that shock, it has to actually attain a new equilibrium. And the new equilibrium, we know, is hovering around where it is. Our responsibility as economic managers is to ensure that it does not fluctuate too badly, but should be within reasonable band that can allow the business community to be able to predict in their business investment. And I can give that assurance that that's where we are. What are we grappling with? There are challenges, because we are not done with this work yet. The challenge is our interest rate level is still high. The reason is very simple. Our deficit service responsibility are very high. Why? Because after the rebasing, we have come to realize that our revenue efforts needs to be phenomenally, fundamentally redoubled. Our revenue efforts, and I'll speak to that, is hovering around 7.8%. That's what it is as of 2023, which is on the very, very, very low side. We should be really, really aiming to be doing 20% efforts in the country. But we are doing 7.8% after rebasing. So it will show up on the appetite of the government to go out there, to be participating in the financial market, to take access to credit, to cover up for this shortfall in domestic revenue mobilization. And it puts pressure on interest rates. But that's where the challenge is, and the reason why when you're doing the budget, when you're asking leaders in the executive to give direction for policy, it is these matters that they have to look at and see exactly how we increase revenue mobilization. Honorable Vice President and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, against this background, the budget for 2025 will aim to implement interventions and policies to reduce and address the fundamental challenge of cost of living, because prices are coming down, but they are still elevated somewhat. But at the same time, improve livelihood by ensuring that we have interventions that can foster a sustainable, inclusive economic growth and transformation. Now, the fiscal framework and the medium-term budgets will therefore support the implementation of the B5 game changers, and the development agenda recognizes the importance of reducing food insecurity, increasing domestic production that will ensure availability and affordability of food for all citizens. The implementation of this agenda, however, requires substantial resources. And the domestic revenue, as I have noted, for the year, we expect to mobilize 19 billion, which is far less than the projected expenditures that we have for the year, which is about 35 billion. 19 billion, as I said, will only account for 8.7%, a very slight increase above what we expect to mobilize in 2024, which is about 7.8. Now, and the government will therefore continue to pursue very structured policies, fiscal consolidation through enhanced revenue mobilization, and rationalize non-priority expenditures whilst we're protecting social spending and development expenditures. That's a policy approach, and I think I have to come up clear that as part of this process, we'll continue to implement reforms to broaden the tax base, improve tax compliance that we have outlined in the medium-term revenue mobilization strategy. There's a medium-term revenue mobilization strategy that I think is populated, and there's a structured committee with the partners, but also key stakeholders in the economy. We look at how that is implemented. It will inform our Finance Act for this year. And our Finance Act for this year will focus largely on efficiency in tax collection using technology and shifts in policies. Shift in some types of policies, for example, corporate income tax policy, the details of which we'll be engaging, discussing, and see exactly how that takes shape. We'll try as best as possible to avoid, and we'll improve on compliance, as I've noted, because tax compliance is very low in the country. We have assessed it. I think we are hovering just about 50% of those who are supposed to really file taxes are filing tax in the country. So we are not collecting. Yes, we are not collecting because of efficiency measures, compliance measures, and administrative weaknesses. And so I think we are going to be focusing on ensuring that we ensure compliance with tax measures, tax policies, because we have laws that back us to do those. We will limit externalities on certain products, because we have committed to gradually ensure that products that are not good for the health of the society, you have to ensure that you are not mean on it, especially when we don't compete effectively in the sub-region. So tobacco, sugar drinks, all of those will hop up on slowly making sure that we take the kind of policy measures that help people in preferential decisions. That's basically what I mean by limiting externalities. So grand policy posture for the finance bill is we really are not going to be big on introducing new tax rates, new tax measures. That's not the posture. The posture is to ensure that we introduce efficiency in the existing measures, because we had front-loaded in 2023 and 2024 most of the tax increases in the system. We're going to try and avoid as much as possible the copycat tendencies that are permeating across some of the regions when you try to increase tax and you trigger social problems in countries. So that's the posture that we are going to be pursuing on tax revenue. We are going to go innovative on mobilizing external capital, and I heard very clearly from the Minister of Development the gap that we have in funding the National Development Plan. And so external resource mobilization, two components: traditional external resource mobilization, will be optimized. And let me speak to this. And you are aware, government has been engaging development partners to mobilize additional resources to complement our domestic revenue to support the 5 big game changers. Recently, His Excellency spearheaded a high-level investment roundtable on renewable energy and food security in Vienna, and where he would the Arab Coordinating Group. This was actually spearheaded jointly by OPEC Fund and BADIA, the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa. That effort, I think, really pushed out strong commitments that we have started materializing already. We have materialized the commitment by IFAD, who actually did pledge $90 million for supporting the feed salon agenda, purely in the area of poultry investment at scale. $90 million poultry investment in this country will be phenomenal. So I think that's really excellent, and it's been negotiated, and we are going to get into effectiveness of implementation and drawing down on that money. But there are resources that were pledged by other Arab countries, both BADIA, OPEC Fund, both to the tune of half a billion, and put all together by others, including the Africa 50, over $850 million were actually pledged. We are actively engaged in mobilizing those resources to support both the feed salon, but also the renewable energy interventions. Now, I should speak about MCC as well. There is a $480 million approval that has been sought, and we are awaiting signals to finalize, get all arrangements for the signing of the bill, of the grant. And what does it seek? I mean, it seeks to support 3 key interventions in a sector that I believe is a foundational sector for pushing our development agenda, which is the energy sector, foundational infrastructure. And so the MCC will focus on increasing coverage and reliability of our transmission network, make it modern and centralized system, increase reliable availability of services for community. That means our distribution network, but also, I think, support the key entities, which are the regulator, but also the service companies, both EGTC and EDSA, to be as robust as possible, to be able to ensure that they deliver low-cost energy. And I think it will be part of our discussion this afternoon. The minister should be able to shed light. What is important for this year is that once we sign, we don't know the date will be signaled, we expect an initial disbursement in the tune of about $48 million to facilitate the setup and do all efforts at entry into force to make the MCC very effective. That will be disbursed this year upon signature. IMF as well. We've done very well with the IMF. We shouldn't have been in program, sincerely, by the time we got to the second term of this government. But for the astute leadership of His Excellency, who made strong commitments to the IMF, that is committed to the reforms, both on tax, but also expenditure and other reforms, and we followed through as an economy. Team, we were able to successfully conclude in September, and the board date for disbursement is set for November 1, at least for the new program. This new program will last for 3 years, and it's going to give us access to 90% of our quota, plus an additional program, which is the Resilience Sustainability Trust Facility program, which is purely to support reforms on climate change and disaster risks. When you combine the both, which will allow us close to 75%, additional 75% of quota, both of those will give us access to close to $500 million with a $50 million disbursement every 6 months coming to supporting our economic management in the country. So these are clear efforts. Yeah. These are very clear efforts at mobilizing resources to support low efforts at domestic revenue mobilization. The World Bank as well, we have concluded successfully the budget support operations in the last 3 years, that it resulted into $265 million direct investment into the budget. We are having an additional, we have concluded negotiations for another round of series of budget support operations. This should be, we have triggers that must be implemented. Reforms that must be implemented. There are 9 reform actions, and we have been engaging affected MDAs in the area of climate change, financial sector, stability, fiscal management, but also governance issues, and making credibility of our budget, which I think is a concern across the world. This across the country. This will allow us to drop down $65 million every year between 2024 and 2026. That's a solid, I think it's a solid support to the budget as well. European Union, and I must say this, European Union as well, in our discussion with them, is going to commence budget support beginning from this year. It's a total of 65 million euros for the next couple of years. It will last up to 2027. They will drop in $11 million euros this year, and in the next, for 2025, 18 million euros, and the subsequent years, 18 million euros each. And I think these are solid efforts, in my view, at supporting our domestic revenue mobilization efforts. In addition to, and I'll speak to innovative financing issues when I get to the capital spending that has been spoken about. Honorable Vice President, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, in the budget call circular, this is basically on the budget formulation process now. On the budget call circular, we did provide guidelines and budget ceilings on the preparations of respective MDA budget proposals. Of course, the fundamental issue with budget is constraints. So given the limited budget constraints, we did provide ceilings for 2025, but of course, the medium-term budget preparation is 2025 up to 2027. And so we're doing baseline budgeting. We expect you to work within your ceiling, but give us an idea as to really what is involved in delivering on your sector, on your MDA. And then we'll engage purely in the budget negotiation that will redirect resources to the Big Five. This is really the approach here. We want to be able to know really the true delivery of your sector, work within your ceiling, we'll see where the gaps are, and we'll know exactly how to fund the Big Five. This is the clear message. Yeah, and then we'll prioritize on certain sectors that must allow these Big Five to be delivered. We maintain your delivery in the way we think we can allow you to be still effective, but give more push to the Big Five so that at least we bring meaning to the intent of both the National Development Plan, but also the manifesto of the government. So, in preparing your estimates, especially the recurring budget, because I think the development budget has been clear directive on those, all MDAs must ensure that their budget proposal estimates stay within the ceiling, while giving us clear indication of what your real deliverables will be. And in addition, all outstanding commitments, including all existing contracts and supplies that you have done for the current year, that may not be fully fulfilled, those ones have to be included. Because we want to limit those supplies eating into next year's, deeply into next year's deliverables. Because that's really the way, I think most of the challenges in most of the MDAs, you carry forward and it eats up nearly maybe 40-50% of the next year's real resources that you should be using to deliver projects. We have admonished that it must be improved, must adequately provide for prior to projects. No new projects we don't want. MDAs must strongly be advised not to budget for new projects that are capital projects without the approval of the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development. I think that has been said. All new capital projects will have to be formulated in the framework of public invested management, according to that policy that has been put on by the Minister already. And this is to ensure that we are very clear on the delivery of the medium-term plan, but also the big five, and ensure that your strategic plan are clearly aligned with it, and that the budget estimates are consistent within the next 3 years. So still within the budget for ceilings, we'll do the adjustment, but let's know what you'll be doing next year and the other year. That's how we must be looking at it. It's not just 1 year, it's actually a 3-year window. That should give us a guide as to how you're going to deliver on this. More importantly, this is basically for my colleague ministers. Kindly ensure that you take full ownership of the budget strategy, the strategy of the ministry. Ensure that you are the one that approve those estimates, and that's what we are going to take to do the negotiation with the Ministry of Finance. Our expenditure will be structured, as I've said, designed to reflect delivery on the big five. And on feed salon, I think it's important for me to make some policy pronouncements as well. We'll maintain our commitment to attain the 10% of the budget, at least within this period that we have committed to deliver it. That is in the budget, and we must ensure that it is delivered in time to align with the planting season. Because the whole issue has been with you miss it. If the money comes late, you've actually undermined delivery on the feed salon program. It's all time bound, and we are very much aware of this. But also, we have identified 6 ecological areas. Our focus will remain on those, both for our domestic revenue mobilization, but also with partners. We have identified infrastructure gaps in the agricultural sector, heating, irrigation, good access to those ecologies, energy, building of key infrastructure for agriculture. These are the focus that we want to pay attention to. We will work on access to capital for farmers, both large but also our smallholder farmers, and we will maintain the policies around ensuring that these farmers have inputs, using whether it's e-vouchers and other forms of having access to capital. We're working on innovative financing for agricultural sector, both insurance but also agricultural fund. We'll engage with the ministry to deliver on this. On human capital development, we will sustain current budget allocations to ensure that government drive on human capital still remain a focus. But I think we have injected a lot of resources that has actually taken us from the low base to some level. We're going to be trying to maintain that and capitalize more on its international financing support to ensure that this program does not fall out of the way. We still are committed to it, but the flagship is feed salon. So I think I should pronounce that as a policy statement as well. On infrastructure and technology, the fundamental issue is bankable projects. If you don't have bankable projects, you will not be able to do much in this space. We have met many times with donors. The first thing they ask you is, where are the bankable projects? What we have in the PIP are largely concept notes. Concept note does not give you money. You have to have pre-feasibility studies, feasibility studies, financial model around the investment. That is what you take to go to the bank. So we are investing in the Ministry of Development to deliver this aspect, help blind ministries for those projects that have been identified. Let's have solid documents. That's what gives us the armor to go and meet partners. We'll ensure innovative financing schemes. On roads, for example, we want to stop investing on charity roads. Charity roads. Yes, especially on highly plied roads or charity forms of having access to water. Charity forms of having access to energy. No. You have to pay for water. You have to pay for roads, especially highly plied routes. Now, the innovative financing approach is the following. If we have an investor, a contracting firm or construction firm that has identified source of financing for a road that we know is bankable, and I'll give you an example of those that are going to come that the president has pronounced. He has pronounced roads in Moyamba. He wants to do the Mamban up to Kambatok. He wants to do from Mabang up to even Shenge, for example. Those are leading to serious economic zones. These are fish farming zones that feed the entire country, but they have been cut off. People are not having access to them. They're using bad road through water to come to Freetown, for example. You can do that road and toll them. And they can be heavily pliable and they can be pre-financed. And then we can allow how to make sure that within the budget, according to the way we have actually cracked out the financing agreement, we can program ourselves to pay. What has been happening in the country with capital spending on roads? We took upon them in the capital budget. We didn't plan for them properly. And then we caught up with the scale of it. So we have bloated budgets, bloated road projects that can never finish, and they get caught up with changes in prices, bloated values, and then they are suffocating the budget. So we are actually reading, when you hear the Minister of Development saying they are going to be doing what they call review, reprogram, rationalize. Take a stock of existing projects and prioritize them, that's what it means. So we want to ensure that we really have control over road projects and have control over our capital expenditures. On energy, I must say, it's the same approach. The fundamental issue with the energy sector has to do with subsidies. So we are committed to working with the energy sector to see how best to address reducing subsidies. We have done 7 town electricity projects. We are committed to ensuring that those projects are implemented this year. We are also committed in increasing uptake on regional power trade and supply. So issues around WAP, transport, CI energy, West African power pool access, these are things that we need to really ramp up in the year to come to make sure that we support. There are many green investments in the country, but they are costly for our people. We have committed to provide subsidy to that space and see how best we can lower the price. We are currently doing that. That's another lower the price for, to be able to reach out to the remote areas where these services are provided for our people. And also ensuring that renewable energy, hydro and solar investment, we optimize on them and ensure that there's clear governance around ETSA and the others, and ETSA and EGTC, but also EWRC. So let me conclude on issues around budget execution challenges and the way I believe we should be addressing them. Extra budgetary expenditures. Where MDAs are in, what we have is a perennial problem. We submit requests for expenditures that were not in the budget, median. And this caused a lot of slippages to priorities. So if you are encouraging to stay within budget, and the posture is if it is not in the budget, if it's not appropriated for, we will not fund it. And that's why when MDAs have been coming for announcement of their budget media, because of our engagement with the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament, and we don't want to falter on the appropriation that has been given on the law, we send them there to go and seek appropriation when we don't do supplementary budget. So if it's not appropriated, we want to stop the habit of doing extra budgetary expenditure as much as we can. On in-year requests for salary adjustment promotions that were not budgeted for, causing overruns of the wage bill. We have the WCC. It's going to take us like 2 years to conclude that work, but there will be adjustments in earnings and the like. That's why we commenced the whole process of wage bill consultations this year. So if it has not been approved prior to the budget for the manpower planning process, we will not approve it. If there is any approval, it has to come through the Ministry of Finance, and we have to go through, we sit with the WCC and rationalize. We are not going to be doing that because we are working structurally to rationalize wages, create proper wage relativities in the country, and be able to afford that we can afford. I just want to note that high security related expenditure have been driving our budgets of late. Of course, I'll point to what has been happening, whether it's strike scares, or strike actions, or attempted coup. All those things are governance issues. Just this signal of continuous insecurity is costing a lot of spending, and I think it's important for you to displace the budget somewhat. When we have to provide for peace and social stability, I think all else we'll have to wait until we release it. It's important to know that. So if some MDAs are actually, allowed to wait for a while for us to be able to ensure that you get your allocation for the year, know that we are handling other pressing issues that are creating the peace that we are enjoying around. And I've mentioned debt service. Of course, the whole issue of debt is historical accumulation of debt for a state. When they do fall due, you cannot default. We have to stay solvent. We are a credible nation. We have never defaulted. This nation has never defaulted. We have never ever. So not under our watch. We will not allow that to be the case. So we will honor obligations under difficult circumstances. And the reason why we are coming up with all these policies for enhanced domestic revenue mobilization and ensure that we have control over it. On capital budget, just to summarize, Your Excellency, Vice President, and colleagues, Minister of Development, Moped, has been very clear on the governance framework around capital budget. She's been very clear about innovating financing scheme, the need for bankable projects, avoiding in-year approvals, but ensuring that she will rationalize the existing PIP program. I would just encourage that we all support that process and we'll have control over our budgets going forward, make it credible. So let me conclude that, Vice President, please, that the government is keen on fostering prudent management of public resources in order to support inclusive economic growth and development. So the policy measures that will be articulated in the budget for 2025, they are expected to improve economy-wide efficiency, create the enabling environment that supports growth in businesses and investments, reduce the cost of living, and also enhance the well-being of all Salonians. So I would like to express my deep appreciation to my colleague, Deputy Minister, Finance 1 and 2, Financial Secretary, Director of Budget, the dedicated teams that have worked with us from all MDAs, including colleague ministers in the budget process. The process is going to continue, as we said, with strategic topical hearings, and we'll have a retreat where we'll actually look finally at the numbers and how they all fit, so that we can know that the storyline we are saying we will support the Big Five will come out very clearly. And while it is possible to execute a good budget very poorly, it is also impossible to effectively execute a properly poor budget, poorly prepared budget. So I urge you to be involved in the process, take ownership. I had the CSO guiding us on key topical issues, gender budgeting, child budgeting, but I've also spoke about baseline budgeting. All of those policies that we have said in the call circular will come to pass. So let me thank you very much for listening. I think the process has just started, and I encourage everyone to support us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I think you really said it all in terms of what needs to be done to the budget. I cannot wait any further, otherwise I'll run into trouble. I think you really said it all. Thank you, Minister. Well, to put all of these economic theories, policies, principles, concepts in the context of the budget planning, for the layman to understand, there is nobody best placed to do that than our Honorable Vice President, who is going to translate all these economic policies for the layman to understand what the budget is. So, Honorable Vice President,
thank you very much. Can you sit down, please? I think, Mr. Chairman, I will start to translate that in an anecdote to show that time has changed. When we were very young guys, school-going kids, in secondary school those days, when they said the Minister of Finance is going to pronounce a budget, I remember most of the time I was in Tonkoleli district, in Yile, that is the Congolese chiefdom. where I had uncles who were headmasters and principals who buy a new battery, we all sit down and listen to the Minister of Finance. And I remember those days of Asambisi Kanu and others, Sanya Musari. If the Minister of Finance did not announce increase in salaries of head teachers and principals, you will suffer for 1 week in the house. But if those salaries are increased, believe you me, it's another Christmas. So the time has changed. Today when you listen to the Minister of Finance, the structural shift and structural transformation. I want to advise that when you add salary increase there, the people in the villages will listen to you and you will buy batteries for their vehicles. So I want to thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for giving me this opportunity every year to come and underline the policy perspectives underpinning the budget process. But first of all, I want to thank you personally, you and your team, your deputy ministers, and the entire team in the ministry over the years for the tremendous work you've done to stabilize the economy and support service delivery. Particularly against the backdrop of very, very difficult, challenging period, not only in the sub-region but in the entire global economy. We spoke about the dollar, being able to stabilize it. The FS said we want to keep it that way. No, we want to bring it down. And because we want to bring it down, we have taken extraordinary measures to allow the Central Bank of Sierra Leone to invest and start using loans to buy gold, so that gold reserve will be able to constitute collateral for strengthening the value of the loan. So we have done all of that, and we expect, and there's a direct relationship between that and the cost of living. You realize that today, in the last couple of months, we have been able to stabilize the prices of essential commodities, and but the cost of those commodities in the very far rural areas continue to fluctuate. Because if you buy rice, for example, 850 leones, and then flour 750, onion between 450 and 550 in Freetown and urban towns, when you move further where the road network is very difficult, the price increases a little bit further. So I think we've asked the Ministry of Trade to work on a price stabilization formula where businessmen cannot just get up overnight and increase the price of essential commodity without engaging the Ministry of Trade. And we want to do that, and the dollar, like I said, is directly linked to that. We have seen the progressive decrease in food inflation. And then also I want to thank the Minister and his team for respecting international financial benchmarking. I was very proud when a couple of weeks ago I was in France. I had the opportunity to interact with senior French officials when they announced to me that Sierra Leone is now qualified for loan from the French Ministry of Finance and Treasury. And that you don't get easily if you don't show seriousness in how you manage the economy. So today, most French companies have been called to the Ministry of Finance to announce that news. Eiffage, Matière, of course. While I was in Paris, I organized several calls with the Minister of Finance to link him up with some of those big French companies that will now access loans from French government with a very small interest rate, about 2 to 3%. And that is what most French countries have been profiting today, given the excellent relationship we have with France and the good relationship between the President of France and His Excellency President Julius Maada. Those opportunities are coming to our doorstep, and I want to encourage you to continue to tap on those new opportunities. We have seen a very difficult transition from development financing to subsidy. In the last couple of years, the Ministry of Finance has done extraordinarily well, because when there's an increase in the cost of living, we never allowed that to be translated to the ordinary citizens. So we came in the form of subsidies. We subsidized fuel, we subsidized rice. Now the minister just told me they're trying to get back the custom duties on rice. We subsidize electricity. Sierra Leoneans are paying the least for electricity outside of countries like Algeria and those countries that have oil. But in the South region, in terms of our tariff structure, and I believe these are very difficult times, but also these are times where we have stood up as a country, we have showcased our capacity to manage the economy very well. So I want to thank you, Honorable Minister, once again. Moving forward, I think you have already outlined the key perspective. What we expect is what I will call, in a layman's term, bridge budgeting. I don't know whether that is layman enough. Bridge budgeting means that you build a budget that creates linkages. The idea is to consolidate the gains we have made and open new perspective into the big five. So all the gains we have made in the human capital development sector, we want to keep them, and then we want to build on them, and then we also want to open new perspective. So we want to build a bridge between those gains and the new horizon we are moving into, especially the ones that have been clearly outlined by the Minister of Planning and Economic Development. Some of these gains, I don't need to list them here, you all know them, what we have been able to achieve in the education sector. The budgetary, we have increased budgetary allocation there, we have increased the number of people, added 1 million people to the school system over the years, prioritized girls' education, of course health. We've done extremely well in maternal and infant mortality. We have been able to progressively reduce from 2018, when we came, the statistics was 1,165 or 100,000 life back. Today we are at 440, and we are waiting for the new statistics, which we are sure and confident that we're going below, we are going downwards, and that is a very good one also for infant mortality. In the area of energy, it has been very difficult, but we have achieved. We've been able to expand access, we've been able to improve on solar mini grids. Today, over 54 towns in this country have off-grid solar solution. Tomorrow, I will be in Botloko district, in one of the chiefs in Lokomsama, one of the big towns in Lokomsama, to put on another grid. So it shows we have been able to work on the transmission lines, we have expanded access, and we continue to subsidize. But moving forward, I will come to that, we need to reduce drastically the energy budgetary support to the energy sector. And that will not come by just increasing tariff, because as a country we are obliged to keep the tariff structure. We know that 90% of consumers are within the social tariff category. We want to keep that. But what we want to see in the energy sector is improved management. Because all the investment that is coming to the energy sector, 480 million from MCC, DFS, and all those, if you increase generation, you modernize the transmission line, you expand distribution network, but the optical management, the governance of the sector is not effective, efficient. Believe me, all that investment will go to the drain. So we want to see thorough reform in that sector, particularly the offtake and the utilities, to rise up to the challenge to reduce technical and commercial losses, because we have to get that. Of course, in the area of transport, you've seen connectivity have been improved fiber connectivity. We have expanded the networks. More and more Sierra Leoneans now have access to internet. And then the Waka Fine Boss, of course, we've done some reform in the port. We are expanding the port. other potential investors are coming to do further investment in the port to expand the port. In all of these games, we still look into the future. We look to the future because one key areas I normally tell people, when you have a government that spends a lot of money in the social sector, that government needs to unleash the potential of the productive sector. You need to make money. For you to distribute money, you have to make money. So we have to go to the productive sector. So we are looking into the future. It means while we are trying to support the big five, we also have key areas that we need to focus on. We know with the big five, already in the last couple of years, we have seen improving local food production, particularly the feed salon. We have seen movement gradual increase from 947,000 metric tons. Now we are at 1.2 million metric tons. In the last couple of years, we have also, I want to thank you very much for the $10 million grant you've given to farmers. But like we said in one economic management meeting, we still have to do more to ensure that people who want to go into agriculture have competitive loans. They are not subjected to the same interest rate like people who want to go and buy and sell. We have to de-risk that lending. We have to ensure that is something we have started discussing, that we are working with the IFC to see if we can create a collateral funding at the central bank to support people. Because when you go for loans, if you have a collateral funding to support you, you are able to reduce the insurance. If you reduce the insurance, the interest rate will automatically come down. So we have to create additional incentive to encourage private sector investment in the agricultural stream. Like His Excellency normally says, the objective of feed salon is one single objective: increase domestic food production. Because over the years, the amount of money we are spending to import onions, to import poultry products, to import rice is too huge. And that also has corresponding impact. Minister, you know, every time we are under stress from suppliers for additional foreign currency. So when we increase domestic food production, when you have a country like ours that spends about $600 to $800 million to import food, if you reduce that, then you create less stress on the foreign economy. And also, make no mistake, the agricultural sector is the most promising sector for job creation. From production to processing to commercialization, it's a huge opportunity. That is, I'm very happy that you made a similar statement here that you continue to support agriculture. We are very happy about that. And then we have seen massive improvement today, like you said. Industry, I'm very impressed that you gave us the statistics. We have worked very hard to encourage companies to come and establish industries here. And now, we also have to encourage them. Particularly, we have to review the consensual regime. We are going to give concessions, waivers to companies. We want to encourage them to go further up country. Now you have electricity in Bo, you have electricity in Kono, you have electricity, the CLSD is being extended to the north, to Kolilu going down to Koilatugu, coming down to Karine. So the further you establish an industry in the region, the more waivers you are going to get. That is an incentive to bring jobs in those regions. You know, that will be very, very interesting, because today we have seen the growth of industries in Freetown, and we are struggling to provide space for them. So many people want spaces in the halls, people want to be around Kisi. We are struggling to provide spaces. So let's give them some concessions so that they can move in country, so that is an encouragement for them to do. Because one of the arguments we normally give is that you don't have electricity in country. Now that we have the CMSG line and it is working, we can encourage them to go. We have seen the growth of industries. Today we produce cocoa, we produce our own saline, vegetable oil, we export vegetable oil, we export Maggi cube to our neighbors. And then we see onions, the production is getting up. Today, if you go to the PC and Son farm, if they package the onions that are grown there, you will not make a distinction between that and the ones that is imported from outside. That is, we are seeing a lot of investment in that area. Essentially, we have also done very well with regards to infrastructure. You see, we are very happy that when we travel our country, we see communities come to thank His Excellency for the bridges. You know, Operation No Ferry, we are regularly trying to get those old ferries out. And we are always very, very proud when communities come to show their appreciation to His Excellency the President for that. We have seen private sector involvement not only in agriculture, but in so many other things. The basis for job creation is growing. And for job creation, already there's a strategy, there's a job creation strategy which will go to cabinet, and we link all the key sectors within government. And in addition to that job creation strategy, we have expanded dialogue, what we call a social dialogue with labor unions and employers, because we need to take their views into how we are going to carve out our job creation strategy. And we expect the President to launch that job creation strategy in the next couple of months. We have expanded investment in social protection. Over the years, in 2018, when we came, the budget from our development partners were around $22 million. We introduced a new dimension we call the protective social safety net. That allowed us to increase that allocation to $42 million. Just last week, we came at this week to see how to enhance coordination in that space. So these are things that are also being moved by several ministries, including Minister of Health, Minister of Education, Gender, Minister of Youth, and Minister of Labour. So that is the process that also needs support. On the human capital development is that we've done very well. I'm very happy that you made a commitment to support that. And I must say the challenges we have now in that sector is to improve management in one or two areas. Donors are calling for the expansion of the school feeding program. They express challenges in the school feeding program, and I believe expansion of the school feeding program has not been accompanied by a solid infrastructure that allows us to properly monitor that. The Minister is here to take note of that. That is one thing that came from the Kenema meeting. And then also when it comes to health, we've done very good indicators. Hospital management is still a challenge. We go to hospitals and we see that there are challenges there. But that is also related to the fact that allocations within the ministry is very slow. So the last time we had a meeting with the minister, we decided to carve out a terminology that we call life-saving allocations. You have allocations that are very critical, that when they are stalled, like allocations to the security sector and the health ministry, when they are stalled, they automatically impact the management and functioning of hospitals. And sometimes it's a problem. So let's get that recurrent, let's get that. It's a priority so that we don't delay on that. That will help to improve hospital management as well. We still know we have to reduce out-of-pocket expenditure on health. That is one key area. On infrastructure, we are very pleased with what is happening in the Ministry of Communication, Technology and Innovation, Digital Transformation and Technological Advancement. We have seen increased connectivity, like I have just said. We are now seeing the role of technology in supporting the Big Five and improving governance. We are very, very happy about that. And then also we see financial inclusion through technology. Just a couple of weeks ago, a big company that is operating in other Francophone countries called Wave You know, I was very impressed. They came to Sierra Leone. This is one of the biggest money transfer companies. They are opening up here, and we are very, very happy about that. And then, of course, we have spoken about energy, gradual reduction from the budget. Energy needs to break even, and we need to see, we are happy now, we have a new chairman of EDSA to see how to improve the management. That is the key challenge in the energy sector. It's not generation. It's not generation. The road network, we are also improving, working on that. And I want to thank the Minister of Works. In the last couple of days, we have been engaged with the Minister of Works, the Road Maintenance Board, and the SLI to think about alternative financing model for road network, so that at least we are able to reduce the stress on the national budget. Public sector reform, of course, this is critical. For you to deliver, for the government to deliver, you need the workforce. You need an efficient, motivated, and a viable public sector infrastructure to help support delivery. So this is a new ministry, and it needs support. Already we established a working group under my supervision. We've done a lot of work there. We wanted to support the ministry to be able to develop, to roll out the public sector policy, so that at least to revamp the reform of the public sector. Since it's a new ministry, it requires support in terms of processes and also in terms of new staffing to enable that ministry to stand on its feet and be able to do excellent work. Because that is something I also want to take the opportunity, honorable ministers, to appreciate ministries that have worked very hard to increase revenue in their respective ministry. I want to start with the Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources. We have seen that the revenue is increasing. We know that ministry has got huge potential. They can do more to do that. Two-axis job creation, we note the very significant strides they have made to increase job opportunities. Another ministry is tourism. We see that have also supported the service sector. The service sector today, as the minister said, it has improved. So tourism is one sector, one ministry that has been doing excellent work around that, trying to create make sure that the service sector contributes. Lands ministry, we have seen a massive increase in the budget of the lands ministry, their contribution to the budget. Today is they have resources, and that resources allow them also to further invest in the new administrative city in Lungu. You know, we have acquired lands and we need to pay for that. So since they have money, it's a very fine way to do that. We see mines, we've seen the establishment of the mineral wealth fund. That is a cardinal move. I want to thank the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Mines for the establishment of such a fund to add value to our mineral resources. We also want to appreciate ongoing efforts and reform in certain key sectors, particularly sectors that need resources. Because if we are investing a lot of money today in free quality education, the future of free quality education is going to be the status of higher and technical education. We have to invest in higher and technical education in essentially three big areas. One is infrastructure. Today, when you go to those campuses, they complain they don't have enough classrooms. But I'm also very pleased and thank the minister for the alternative financing model she has presented to Cabinet to generate additional resources to support higher and technical education. Because if we don't get it right, our investment in free quality education is going to seriously be undermined. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of human resource, in terms of infrastructure. And also I'm very happy that they made mention of the local councils. Local councils, they are central to delivery. Make no mistake, if you go to these councils, just in the last couple of days I've been in Bo, I've been in Kema, I've just got another interministerial committee meeting. If you don't have councils in this country, governance will be crippled. Because the number of negotiation, development, social assistance negotiations. These councils are involved from ward level to the district level to the municipalities are huge, so they need support. And we spoke, we made a fantastic presentation, the ministry made a fantastic presentation on how to support them. And one thing that we agreed on is capital grants. The capital grant council, no council in this country has got a single vehicle. If you can help them with the purchase of 25 vehicles, that will go a long way to support them. I want you to please pay attention to that, put that in the budget, so that at least one vehicle per council, we have 22. So just to round it from 25. That's new areas for financing. Please, we want to encourage ministers that have got new opportunities for financing. Climate financing, very, very important. Climate financing is also very important, and we want to pay attention to that. But the ministry also does not have enough human technical staff. If you can support the ministry to be able to get the kind of technical staff they need to be more proactive in climate financing, that will be great. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think the Minister of Finance has said everything. And like I just said, my responsibility here is to draw the Minister of Finance and also to appreciate key sector ministries that are really revenue generating ministries that have been doing very well to continue to do more. We still have a lot of challenges, and I know, and that, but we are on a very good trajectory. We are working very hard as a government. We have been able to provide support to critical sectors against very difficult time. I'm very happy that the minister made mention that is not going to increase tax, but the challenge we have is to enhance tax management. If we can invest additional resources in that, and our brother Mr. Bilateral from the civil society organization made some very interesting point. And I believe the National Investment Board is responsible for public-private dialogue. They should be able to create a platform. The National Investment Board should be able to create a platform for that dialogue, so that at least feed the outcomes of those dialogue to get private sector involvement in the budget process, not only the budget process, but also in being competitive, into that. So I think that is a very, very good point. And I hope I see that the TG of the National Investment Board is here. They have been doing that. Maybe is to expand the dialogue, the PPD dialogue, so that they can make very good impact, particularly around taxation. I also want to encourage the Minister of Finance to support processes that increase efficiency regime. Efficiency regime meaning that, like I just mentioned, school feeding is one key area. Make sure that the life-saving allocations, how to make sure it is regular and it comes on time, because hospitals need to be. There are also key sectors that need support, Mr. Minister. One key sector is the Ministry of Information. They have been doing extraordinary work over the last 1 year, and they need support. To expand their work. And these are usually supports that are outside of the normal budgetary allocation, because events will come and they are big events and they need support. But at least that is critical. The Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation is still in the 1960s mode. We need now to take it to a post-modern age. We need analog TV. We need to improve that. These are investment that comes with a lot of added value. The more people we go there, they'll be able to make money. They'll be able to cover programs. They will have resources. But when they are rich and quality and mobility is very low, it becomes a problem. And also the support to the fight against push. This is the support that's usually not 5% between the budgetaries. That is also, don't forget about that. It's also very important. We see the MDAs, they are doing fantastic work, but they are struggling with mobility capacity. How do we support that fight? It is going very well. Just yesterday, the director of MDA was telling me the price of push has gone to 25 million. It's essentially because we have been able to squeeze the distribution network and increase vigilance at the port. So now people take risks to sell it. People take risks to sell it. I believe with additional support, they'll be able to close. They'll be able to close that gap. I'm also happy security sector is also what we have done very well over the years with regards to the security and defense sector. When His Excellency came, we promised a 100% salary increase, and we have seen that 25% per year over the last 4 years. That has gone very well. We have increased the mobility capacity of the security sector. For a long time in the history of this country, we now have a modern communication equipment for the police. That they no longer depend. They no longer depend on using mobile phone to pass operational orders. We have a modern one. So I want to thank the minister for that. And these are just some ideas I want to share with you. To thank you and to thank all those ministers that are working very hard under very difficult circumstances. And I've already passed your message that for you to buy battery and listen to the radio, that the discourse of the budget, the finance minister has to shift a little bit from structural to welfareism in terms. But we also want to appreciate all of you. We want to thank, I know the next couple of days will be very interesting. The other thing that I want to finish on is what you also concluded on, is the budget ceiling. Usually, if you are cutting down on the budget ceiling, please open a space for dialogue. Sometimes ministries develop their budget against critical benchmarking in light of their mandate. So if there's going to be a drastic cut, please open a dialogue space, discuss with them, exchange with them, so that at least we can make adjustments where necessary. It is very critical. Because I remember the discussion we had with you and the Minister of Health on the life-saving allocations, and I was very surprised that the budget cuts for the Minister of Health was really drastic. And these are life-saving allocations, and we need to keep them to get the hospital particularly function at the optimal level we want them. So, honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time. And in the usual traditional way, this is how we start the budget hearing. I'll give you my own modest layman contribution, as the Finance Secretary said, and we hope that the dialogue for budgeting will continue, and that more importantly, like you said, I am very impressed when I went to Brussels, and I went to France, and I went to Europe, and that the way they appreciated the management of the economy in this very difficult time. I was really proud, and I want to thank you very much. I wish you
Thank you very much, Honorable Vice President. I think you did even more than what the layman can understand. Everyone will understand. Thank you very much. We really appreciate those insights that will shape the discussions on the budgets over the coming weeks as we try to conclude this budget planning process. We cannot close without doing justice to the Gender Act to make sure at least we fulfill the 30%. So if you look at the number of presenters here, so far you can calculate what's the percentage of women that have presented. So I want to make sure I exceed 30% by end of this session. So I'll invite my dear sister and Deputy Minister of Finance 1, Mrs. Karia Tuali, to give us closing courtesies so we can bring this formal opening session to an end. Let's give her a round of applause, please.
an honor and privilege to be giving the final courtesies for this year's National Policy Hearing and Bilateral Budget Discussion, MDAs and other stakeholders. I would like to thank our esteemed Honorable Vice President of the Republic of Sierra Leone for taking time off his hectic schedule to be with us here today. We especially appreciate your inspiring speech, sir, which will guide us throughout the national budget deliberations in the coming days and weeks. I want to thank the Honorable Minister of Finance and other ministers of government for participating in this year's national policy hearing and bilateral budget discussions with the MDAs and other stakeholders. As is always the case, today, the idea behind today's hearing is to have a discussion and to sensitize the executive and development partners of policy issues that will drive our budget for 2025. I would also like to thank the Secretary to the President, permanent secretaries and representatives of MDAs, representatives of bilateral and multilateral institutions, representatives of civil society, and members of the Fourth Estate, distinguished guests. I thank you all for taking time to join us today. You are all very wonderful. I cannot proceed without recognizing members of Parliament present here today. We appreciate your time and your effort to help make the executive deliver on its mandate. The staff of the Ministry of Finance, the Accountant General's Department, especially our dynamic Financial Secretary and committed Chief Economist, a very able Accountant General, distinguished and accomplished directors and staff. I'm very proud to be a part of your team in the Ministry of Finance. I give all of you special thanks. The man behind all of us, the Director of National Budget, Chief Tasimaja. And have good rest of the deliberations coming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So this actually brings us formally to the end of the opening session. I want to really make an appeal to ministers, especially deputy ministers, permanent secretaries that are present, please to come back for the afternoon session, because that's really where we're going to do the discussions. So please don't go. In fact, the most important ministry to visit during the day is Ministry of Finance, and we will not be there. The minister will not be there, the deputy will be there, the deputy will be there, I will not be there. So let's just stay here, and you can even engage us better. So please, we'll break for tea for like 30 minutes. Mr. Jack, the chief organizer, chief chair. So he will announce to us the arrangement for tea break where ministers, deputies will take tea and the rest of stakeholders, partners as well, development partners, please join us for tea. And then please, let's make sure we are in this room exactly 1 p.m. so that we can start the the afternoon session, 1 p.m. prompt. And I want to see this hall packed full as it is for the technical discussions. If I don't see you, then you will not see me next week.
We are breaking for tea break now. As the chairman has said, it's just up to 1 o'clock. The high table, Honorable Vice President, you are invited to a tea break at the restaurant, which will be followed by the high table, Honorable Ministers, development partners, the deputy ministers, development partners, and members of Parliament present at the restaurant, the hotel restaurant right up there. And all of us here, permanent secretaries, directors, other staff members, we have our team just at the forum out there. So we will now pray. And we please sit and wait. The Honorable Vice President move.
Alright, viewers, in case you just join we, this is Liberty Online TV as we bring to you live updates. Right now, the New Bookfeast Hotel, as we then also for observe the Ministry of Finance as they join hand together with the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, who side they organize the final year 2025 national policy hearing and bilateral project discussion with MDAs and key stakeholders. Then we get for do it. Ministries, departments, and agencies, them where governments give money, for facilitate them spendings and the financial expenditures then for the year. And as we don't get the session, the Vice President of the day, we have Dr. Mohamed Jallo. We then have to preside over this particular financial year discussion, and also get other ministers them again from ministries, departments, and agencies with then self-billionaire so for come listen to this particular financial year 2025 national policy hearing and bilateral budget discussion. But the discussion will continue as you see now at the background. You see people they march out, they go for a tea break, and just after the tea break, they will come inside again for can continue with the rest of the discussion. And this financial year 2025 national policy gets to do with MDAs, them they get for can table waiting their intent for do inside the next following years then. Waiting and want for do and waiting at the money we required for solve or either do some of them the mandates and the way they try for fulfill. So continue for the with we on Liberty Online TV as we will continue for bring to now more updates on waiting the unfold there. So right at the New Face Hotel as the Ministry of Finance join hand together with the Ministry of Planning for discuss with government departments, ministries and agencies and then they can tell them within actually them expenditures for next year 2025. This is Liberty Online TV and me and Mohamed Kamal will bring to this updates.